Hey guys, and welcome back to StackByte. We break down bite-sized chunks of full stack development in short videos. So today we're going to be talking about the database and using Laravel. Now, working with thousands of records in Laravel is pretty easy. You don't really have to change how you do things. You can just keep on using the Eloquent ORM to query your data. But there might come a time where your record sets are in the hundreds of thousands, and querying them or making bulk reads and writes or updates might cause a few problems, like running out of memory or running out of execution time. Most of these bulk scripts tend to be in the CLI or running on cron, or your execution time isn't as big a factor, but memory usage will still affect your server. So I've got a little sample Laravel app set up here, and I'm just using the Laravel debug bar package from Barry VDH. And this is an absolutely fantastic package for debugging, checking out what's using memory, what's using execution time and things like that. So I'm going to use this to show you how each of these different approaches to querying large data sets works. So I've seeded this app with 300,000 or so user records, and what I'm going to do is try and loop through every user we have 3 different ways and compare the results. So the first place to start is in here, which is just the standard Laravel roots file when you first install a project. And what we're going to do is just create a query that will bring back all the users at once. And I've added a few, so I'll just copy the code across here. And you can see I've added a few of these debug bar measurements in so that you can see, but basically what we're doing is grabbing all our users and then just looping over them, not really doing anything, but this is where we would do something to our users. So if we head back to Laravel and we click run, or we refresh the page, should I say, as you can see, it's because it stores them all in memory, the memory usage is absolutely horrible. There's half a gig of memory. It's still not terrible, but if you're running this process on the same server as your website is being served from, that means a significant portion of your memory is being used and can't be used elsewhere to serve your actual users. But you can see that it takes very, very little time to go through the loop. It's less than half a second. The database query itself, because it's quite big, took 2.1 seconds. And the whole thing itself took just under 3 seconds. So let's try a different strategy. And what we're going to try here is chunking. So chunking is something that the Eloquent ORM allows you to do. And it allows you to say, grab me chunks of X number of users until we've gone through them all, and the framework will handle all the math of how many queries it needs to run, how big the chunks need to be. Oh, actually, you can specify how big the chunks need to be. So let's just copy this example across from my little off-screen code thing here. So you can see we've just got the user model here, and we're saying user in chunks of 10,000. Now the chunks are quite big because it's quite a huge data set, and I want to reduce the number of queries I'm actually running. So 10,000 actually not that many for MySQL/Eloquent to handle. And then inside the closure here that you pass to it, I'm just doing a for each over the chunk. And this chunk is actually a collection or an array of users, and we can do something with our users in here. So let's go back to the browser and run this. And you can see straight away that took nearly double the time, but it's used so much less memory. And that's because as each chunk is done in here, in this closure, it can garbage collect the memory that you've used inside this chunk. So that then becomes free, and it can be used again and reused, and it stays relatively low, well, ridiculously low compared to the other ones. So the drawback is that it's obviously making more queries. So we've got 300,000 users divided by 10,000, so that's 30,000. No, that's 30 queries according to the calculator, and the execution time's a little bit longer because you can see that each query obviously takes some time because it's still bringing back 10,000 users. And then you have the overhead of running all of those queries together. There's another approach that you can make, which is a cursor. Now, a cursor is a special kind of way of retrieving results from the database that doesn't involve pulling all the records at once. The database connection itself it acts like a window and it moves from one record to another at a time, like blinkers on your own query. And what is returned, I believe, is a reference basically an address in memory where that data exists, and the reference moves across all the rows. So PHP only ever has to look at one thing, and that's the reference, and only ever have that one thing in memory at a time, which is the reference itself. And let's just copy in my example here, and then head back to the browser and run it. And you can see it's taken a bit longer. There we go, it's done. 7.07 seconds. So this is the longest that any of them has taken. But you can see that the database query runs super, super quick. And those are microseconds, which are actually smaller than milliseconds. So really, really fast. But the processing seems to use more memory. We've got about 207.4 meg, so nearly quarter of a gig, I guess. And the execution time is way longer. And I suspect this is because there's a lot more round trips between PHP and MySQL, because PHP has to request the next row from MySQL. MySQL has to inform PHP that the next row is here or that we've reached the end of it. And I think the network round trip, and basically if you take a look at the Wikipedia page for cursors, one of the disadvantages listed is fetching a row from the cursor may result in a network round trip each time. Now, I'm not sure if it does this with MySQL, but it definitely seems to be a good explanation for what's happening. But the query does run really quick, and it doesn't time out. The memory usage isn't horrible, so that's another approach that you could possibly have. So there we are, 3 ways to avoid blowing up your server. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any more videos. Thanks, guys. Bye now.